What's up, guys? Welcome to the Slasher Dungeon. Today we're going to talk about Eraserhead, the cult classic surrealist horror debut film of legendary director David Lynch. This was a groundbreaking film upon its release and launched David Lynch's career. David Lynch is one of my favorite directors of all time, and I personally think that despite this being his first film, that's his greatest work. David Lynch sadly passed away recently, so this video is dedicated to him and his amazing legacy. I won't mince words here. Eraserhead is an incredible film, and in my opinion, it's up there as one of the scariest movies of all time. This and The Exorcist definitely have that title tied up for me. I first saw Eraserhead in my early 20s, and its horrifying imagery and overall nightmare aesthetic have stuck with me ever since in a way that is hard to describe. This film really left a lasting impact on me, and even now going back to watch it gives me a sense of dread and anxiety. Eraserhead isn't your typical horror film. Cryptic, bleak, heavy, and full of surrealist imagery, and what is probably the scariest use of sound design in film I've ever seen, it's truly something special. Every scene, every image, every interaction, every beat of this film is drenched in a heavy lead jacket of dread and horror. Watching Eraserhead for the first time is like being shoved into an industrial-grade meat grinder and coming out the other side raw and beaten down by the fatalistic and bleak atmosphere of the film and its contextual nightmare imagery. Nightmare is a good descriptor for this movie, with David Lynch himself calling the film a dream of dark and troubling things, and I can't think of a better way to describe it. Every scene genuinely feels like a nightmare, even down to the scenery and the logic of the film. A lot of people are confused by the plot and content of Eraserhead, but if you go into the film viewing it as a dream or a nightmare, then you begin to understand the choices and why it doesn't exactly fit a typical narrative formula. The logic in the film doesn't make sense, but as nightmare logic, it absolutely makes sense. And trust me, this is the stuff of nightmares. But I won't spoil the film for my viewers. There's been a lot of talk and analysis surrounding the meaning of Eraserhead and its varied symbolism, with David Lynch being very cryptic about its meaning. But in this video, we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about the setting of Eraserhead, the subject of just as much analysis and theory, and I'm going to share with you my personal thoughts on the subject and the theories that I believe most accurately make sense of the setting of the film. Eraserhead is set in a bleak, dystopian, industrial landscape that feels like a persistent and heavy nightmare. The world consists of crumbling brick factories, smokestacks, and barren concrete lots. The entire world seems buried in concrete and smoke and decay. The entire film takes place at night, or in windowless, shadow-drenched spaces. The window in main character Henry Spencer's room is facing directly against a solid brick wall, and is his only view of the outside world. The film masterfully molds the industrial, urban, dystopian hellscape with themes of death and decay. Everything here is either dead, dying, or mutated. The little plant life shown in the film is withered and decayed. The food is rotting and bleeding and moving around. The men of the film work in heavy industry, and Mary, Henry's girlfriend, has a father whose first conversation with Henry includes descriptions of an industrial injury. Some characters seem almost catatonic, and all of them are clearly troubled living in this world, Mary often throwing fits of hysteria. Henry and Mary's child is heavily deformed, and much of the film's plot centers around this horrifying detail. And the only plant life in Henry's apartment are a few dead branches poking out of a mound of dirt on his bedside table. Liquids ooze from pipes, floors look perpetually damp, and the line between cold machinery and rotting organic matter is constantly blurred. The film gives a feeling that everything here is either dead or dying, crushed by the abhorrent living conditions and the dense atmosphere full of industrial fumes. But many, such as myself, theorize that there is further meaning to all this death and decay, further meaning to the mutations that even affect the food these people are forced to consume. A reason why there seems to be such little life in this film, why the streets are so empty, why it is set in perpetual knot, with only a constant, low-frequency ambient hum, hissing steam, and the clanking clutter of machinery in the air. I believe that Eraserhead is a nuclear wasteland film, and there are several clues that have led me to this conclusion. In fact, I had this thought on my very first viewing of the film. It all seemed to make easy sense to me studying the film and its characters. One of the most disturbing scenes in the film is when Henry visits Mary to meet her family at their home. He's greeted by Mary looking frightened, afraid to even open the door, but viewing him uneasily through the door glass. She looks around to make sure there's no one else, as the sounds of howling dogs and hissing steam overwhelm the viewer. You're overwhelmed with a sense that there are monsters lurking in the darkness, and the sound of howling dogs sounds exactly what you would expect from mutated Chernobyl dogs in the wilderness. These people are afraid to even step outside their own doors. Something you notice with every scene of this film is the incredible sound design, and one of the many horrors lies in the things you can't see but you can hear. There's constant chaos happening outside the dreadful taut walls of the enclosed spaces and indoor scenes, and you're always left to wonder what horrors lurk in the darkness. Oddly, the characters in the film never acknowledge this barrage of atmospheric sound, giving a clear indication that it's a permanent condition, and it very much feels like the mechanical life support hum of an underground bunker, or the life support system keeping the last remnants of humanity alive and protected from the nuclear fallout and the beasts that wait outside. When Henry is walking around this industrial hellscape, he's always looking over his shoulder, always afraid of something, and it leaves the imagination reeling. There are other obvious clues to this theory. One huge clue that many viewers have latched onto is the painting in Henry's room. It's a small frame painting of an atomic bomb's mushroom cloud. For a film that's known and recognized for its heavy use of symbolism, this seems like a pretty direct message, and it's hard to miss. Given the other aspects of the film that point to a nuclear wasteland setting, this one kind of seals the deal for me, and I can't imagine it was placed there simply by accident. This is all just my opinion, of course, but it feels like Lynch is giving us a direct message, and this isn't the only time. Nuclear war seems to be prevalent in a lot of David Lynch's other works, including his own paintings, as well as the iconic nuclear explosion scene in Twin Peaks: The Return, during the episode titled Got a Lot? It seems clear that nuclear apocalypse weighed heavily on David Lynch, and was a motif he came back to over and over again throughout his career. And even if the setting of Eraserhead wasn't explicitly a nuclear wasteland, it seems clear that it's part of the creative spark and inspiration for the film. The mushroom cloud painting and Henry's room are iconic images, and anyone who loves the film knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's impossible to miss. Even Henry's iconic hairstyle, that's featured prominently on the poster, takes on the gravity-defying shape of a nuclear mushroom cloud. Well, that one's a little far-fetched, but then again, is it really? A nuclear wasteland would account for the imagery of absolute biological death seen in the film as well, the only plant life in Henry's apartment being a dead twig and a mound of dirt. The fact that the outdoor scenes feature no grass, trees, animals, or sunshine, only massive mounds of dirt, dark puddles of sludge, and decaying brick walls. It would also account for the apparent mutations we see in the biological life of the film, particularly the deformed child Henry is tasked with caring for, but even the food. Even the cryptic symbolism of the man and the planet fits this theory, as he's clearly marked with the sores and growths one would expect to see on a victim of nuclear fallout. Listen, I could be wrong. I don't want you to take the wrong idea from this. I don't think that I figured out this film. This is a film that's heavily layered with symbolism and cryptic meaning. I'm not so pretentious that I think that I figured out something others haven't. Many people have pointed to this theory, and it's just one that I think fits. David Lynch has also said that this is his most spiritual film, and there's a lot of theories about, this film being set in the afterlife or some type of purgatory, and I think that's true as well. I think there's a very deeper life and death meaning in the film that I haven't touched on here really. But that's one of the beautiful things about David Lynch and his work. He always left it open to interpretation and analysis, and he encouraged viewers to come up with their own ideas for the film, especially this one. So I'll gladly share my own theories and thoughts, because it's one of my favorite films of all time. Even if there are plenty of people who may disagree with me, that's okay. This is only my personal interpretation, nothing else, and I hope that you were able to enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't seen Eraserhead, you need to, and all of David Lynch's work. That's all for now. Thanks. By the way, Buddy says hi.